Okay, so here we are at Module 1, Lesson 4. This is the last lesson in this module. And so far, to recap, we have talked about the microbiome, how it develops, and what's involved with the microbiome, and how it interacts with the entire body. We've talked about common gut disorders and what's involved with diagnosing and testing for common gut disorders. And now today we're going to talk about treatments for common gut disorders in Lesson 4. And by treatments, I don't necessarily mean medications, although there are some nutraceuticals and supplements discussed. But this is a lot of this is involved with lifestyle modifications, nutritional modifications that you can make, introducing new foods into your daily intake, and recommendations for those things. So let's move forward. So in functional medicine, it's the 5R protocol is commonly discussed. And the first R is remove, the second is replace, third is reinoculate, fourth is repair, and fifth is rebalance. So by remove, we mean we remove we remove the offending bacteria or overgrowth or virus or fungi or whatever you want to talk about. We remove that bug that is causing trouble. So we can use antimicrobial herbs. And also we talk about removing the foods that may be causing some upset. And so a lot of times this means gluten, sugar, processed foods. And there are certain medications like PPIs which can cause gut health issues. So we want to remove some of these things. Now, I also have to say that in clients that I see, I never ask them to discontinue prescription medications or medications that have been prescribed to them by their health provider, but certain over-the-counter medications that they may be taking for extended periods of time, like PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, I will recommend that they wean off, and I give them a protocol to do that. Now, replace can be read as restoring proper digestion by supplementing with digestive enzymes or pancreatic enzymes. Those are available in capsule form. Sometimes people need that in order to get them back on the road. And then we also want to reinoculate the gut with healthy, beneficial bacteria. We want to have a client start taking maybe probiotic supplementation and incorporate prebiotic foods into their daily intake. And I'm going to describe what types of foods would be classified as prebiotics and probiotics. And this is all geared towards reestablishing a microbial balance. So putting everybody back into balance, getting those opportunistic bugs down in numbers, and bringing up the numbers of the commensal bacteria or the good bacteria. And then we want to repair. At the same time, we want to, restore the integrity of the gut mucosa by supporting the healthy mucosal cells. So there are supplements that can accomplish that goal. Sometimes we use those, and I'll describe those as we go on. And then we rebalance. We address the whole body health and lifestyle factors. So, these may include, movement of the body, or stress reduction, or different kinds of protocols that people have been on in order to, that work with their lifestyle, the times you eat, like fasting protocols, and all the like. So I'm going to talk about that in really in Module 3. So let's go on. Dysbiosis. So we know all about dysbiosis now. How common dysbiosis is. It's typically it's a microbial imbalance. So you have a low number of commensal bacteria, and you have a higher number of opportunistic bacteria, the strep and the staph, that really don't belong there. So what you want to do is build up the species of commensal bacteria. So you want to build up those lactobacillus, the bifidus, the bacteroides, the enterobacteriaceae, and you can take medical grade probiotics. And these probiotics should have between, usually over the counter, should have between 50 and 450 million colony forming units. And we can talk about that more in later lessons. And you also want to recommend that clients increase their dietary intake of vegetables and fiber, including psyllium and oat bran. You definitely want to remove dietary sugar. So the white sugar needs to go, refined carbohydrates, anything that comes in a package or plastic has to be, really try and do your best to eliminate that from your diet. And then prebiotic supplementation in the form of resistant starch or xylo-oligosaccharides, inulin, beta-glucan, and arabinogalactan. And these will provide essentially food for the probiotics. Probiotics are also found in fermented foods, and I'll go over that in a few slides, and are meant to reduce inflammation. So you want to reduce inflammation as much as you can, bring that cortisol down, stop insulting the mucosal barrier with environmental stressors, with taking in things like gluten and refined carbs and dietary sugar. All of that increases inflammation, so you want to reduce that. And then there's antimicrobial herbs that can be ingested if some species are abnormally high. So probiotics typically are ingested as broad spectrum probiotics, and the more diverse, the better. Basically, most probiotics contain between 50 and 450 billion colony-forming units, or CFUs, and usually contain a mixture of lactobacillus or bifidobacterium and Saccharomyces species. And you can also find fermented foods which have a probiotic effect, and they support the health of commensal microbes. And probiotics can be found in the form of miso, pickles, which is vinegar based, sauerkraut, kombucha, which is fermented, but be careful with kombucha because a lot of over-the-counter kombucha can be filled with added sugar, so you want to really be careful with that. Cottage cheese and yogurts as well have probiotics. Be careful with dairy. A lot of people have an aversion to dairy, so you may want to use another form if you have an allergy to dairy or are lactose intolerant. And chocolate also contains probiotics. Now, prebiotics is essentially, as I said, food for the microbiome, contains dietary fiber. You can take it in the form of psyllium, which is also known as Metamucil. That's the most common brand. You can also take oat bran, and these have compounds like beta-glucan, annullin, pectin, which is found in the peels of fruits like apple pectin, xyla oligosaccharides, galacto-oligosaccharides, and larc arabinogalactans, which all are contained in prebiotics and help maintain the probiotic population. Prebiotics you can find in onions or allium. So allium is onions and garlic. Soybeans, be careful if you have a soy allergy, don't take the soybeans, but there's other things that you can take that will give you enough prebiotics. Asparagus is a good example. Also bananas, leeks, another member of the allium family. Bread, which is, be careful of the bread. You want to have whole grain, or you can even have sprouted bread, which can be found, which is flourless and gluten-free. There's a brand that I use called the Ezekiel bread, which is sprouted grain bread, has no gluten, and just has a grainy goodness. The artichoke as well, if you like those, have wonderful prebiotics. Foods you can find that have good probiotics. I went over a lot of those. Some of them are, dairy based, like cheese or probiotic milk or yogurt or sour cream. So be careful if you have a lactose intolerance or a dairy allergy. You might want to choose something else. I already mentioned, sauerkraut, kombucha, pickles, and bitter chocolate, also very good for probiotics. And again, you can also take a probiotic supplement. So as we know that overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria occurs when the commensal bacteria are low and you have reached, the client has a state of dysbiosis, right? So this can occur in times when there's a reduced digestive function or through PPI use, which causes a low stomach acid or hypochlorhydria. This also occurs in SIBO when you have an overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria in the small intestine due to reduced digestive function, whether that's medically or surgically induced or induced in some other way. If a client is on long-term antibiotics, that can also cause loose stools and resistance of opportunistic bacteria to the antibiotics. So you have resistant forms that grow and live in the intestine, in the gut, and that can cause overgrowth. And you can have, inflammation also causes a state of dysbiosis through the release of histamines. What you want to do as a practitioner and what functional medicine practitioners try and do is support commensal bacteria growth. So it's not a matter of killing the opportunistic bacteria with antibiotics. It's a matter of supporting the commensal bacterial growth, which the idea is that if those commensal bacteria are present in sufficient numbers, the opportunistic bacteria will decrease naturally. So we don't give antibiotics in these cases. We can use antimicrobial herbs such as berberine or caprylic acid, garlic oil, oil of oregano, uva ursi, olive leaf extract. Those are some antimicrobial herbs that are used. And then if you need to use antibiotics, the antibiotics are treated in cases of SIBO in extreme cases, and they use rifaximin. So that is one specific case. The other thing you want to do really is Again, optimize the diet with low sugar and low refined carbs and high plant-based foods and fiber. And then you address all other concerns and sources of stress and sources of discomfort in the patient. Treating H. pylori is another thing you can do if H. pylori organisms are present in significant numbers and if the patient is symptomatic. So if it's there and they're symptomatic, you treat regardless of the levels. Sometimes patients are symptomatic at lower levels, but they may be experiencing the kinds of things that we talked about with H. pylori infection, like brain fog, infections, and in addition to the GI symptoms. So you can treat with antimicrobial herbs, which are, among others, oil of oregano or berberine. And there are also combinations of nutraceuticals that I've had good success with clients. Nutrifil Plus and the BioHPF from Biotics Research are very good compounds that are really good to be used to treat H. pylori infections. And then you want to support the mucosal barrier. There are several things that you can use to restore the integrity of the gut mucosa. One is L-glutamine, which is a very common substance. You can use that. It dissolves in water. It comes in a white powder. Aloe vera extract, deglycerinated licorice, marshmallow root, okra, slippery elm, quercetin, zinc carnosine, vitamin A, B vitamins, essential fatty acids, and acetylglucosamine. And you can provide immune support, which will help repair the mucosal barrier in the form of colostrum, immunoglobulins, and Aspergillosis. And then finally, you want to provide digestive support for your client, and there are some compounds that you can administer. These are not medical or medicines or prescription related. Betaine hydrochloride, apple cider vinegar, herbal bitters, ox bile lactase, pancreatic enzymes, which include amylase, lipase, and protease, and pepsin, which is a digestive enzyme. And these provide digestive support in clients who are trying to repair their gut mucosa. So that ends the module 1. There are 4 lessons. I hope you like them. I have a couple of recommended readings at the end of this module you might want to explore. There's an amazing book by Dr. Alessio Fasano, which is called Gut Feelings, the Microbiome and Our Health. He is one of the fathers of Gut Health Initiative, and he's up in Massachusetts at MGH. There's also Dr. Robert Silverman, who is a chiropractor in New York, who has authored a book called Inside Out Health, which is very enlightening. And there's another Dr. Robert Zambrowski, who wrote a book called Rebuild, where he recounts his own journey in functional medicine as a patient and how he rebuilt his health through his own protocols that he developed. So I would recommend you explore that, and that should give you a lot to think about and learn on. And as you remember, this course is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. So if you have concerns for your health or wish to be evaluated for any of these issues outlined throughout the course, please contact a health professional. And if you're interested in working with me directly or learning more, you can contact me through intentionalselfct.com or Facebook Intentional Self, or my Instagram, Dr. Terry Alacio. And this ends Module 1. So I'll see you in Module 2, and don't forget to take the quiz. Thanks. Bye.
All right.